Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Working Together. I'm Bishop Ronnie Crudup, Diocese Bishop for the Fellowship of International Churches, and also Senior Pastor for New Horizon Church International here in Jackson. And glad to be here with this program that is a program of Working Together Jackson and Working Together Mississippi. And I welcome each and every one of you to this program today and pray that you are doing well. Listen, we're going to have a great program today, so thank you for joining us, and take the opportunity to, also share this and get some more people involved with us in this forum today. Of course, as always, if you'd like to give us a call and make some expressions, we would welcome that as we get into our program and our discussions today. Of course, this program is brought to you by Working Together Jackson and Working Together Mississippi. Working Together Jackson and Working Together Mississippi are a community organizing organization. Working Together Jackson and Working Together Mississippi have actually been in Jackson and Mississippi since the early 90s. At one time, we had a little different name. Some folks may remember the old Amos Network. We rebranded ourselves and became Working Together Jackson, and then expanded that to Working Together Mississippi. But we're an affiliate of the Industrials Area Foundation, which is the oldest community organizing organization in the country. And so there are affiliates all over this country in a lot of the major cities and states of this country, and we're glad to have the organization here because we've been able to do a lot of really good things by teaching our member organizations how to build their own power to make change, because that's what it's all about, okay? As I said, we are a membership organization, which means that there are houses of faith, as well as community organizations, nonprofits, all kind of good organizations out there that care about the community, that are a part of this wonderful work. And we would invite you and your organization also to be a part of this. And so maybe you are a part of a church, a mosque, a synagogue. Maybe you're a part of a neighborhood association. Maybe you're a part of some other really good nonprofit that's working in this city or across the state. We would love to have you to have a conversation with us about being a part of this organization as well, because we all need resources, okay? We all need to be a part of good movements that strengthen us and strengthen our hand to do the work that we're desirous of doing. And that's what Working Together Jackson and Working Together Mississippi do. Really bring a whole lot of wonderful best practices and strategies and tactics that helps you accomplish the ends that you want. And so that's what it's about. Because nobody ever does anything really, really significant. This is a principle. Nobody ever does anything really, really significant alone, okay? There are always a lot of other folks that's around you and that helps you. And so that's what these organizations and Working Together Jackson, Working Together Mississippi do. And the different thing and really good thing about this is that these are not top-down organizations. These are bottom-up organizations, because typically in most organizations, the agenda for the organization is made from the top down. In this organization, the agenda is made from the bottom up. And so it's really from the membership that the agenda for the organization really occurs. And that's different, okay? But it's effective. It works. And so if you want to know more about us, we've got a Facebook page out there you can go to for Working Together Jackson, okay? You can also Google us, and you'll find us there. And so you'll be able to make contact with us, with our organizers, with others, and find out a lot more information. We love it when people want to look at us and, and appraise the work that we do. Because I understand the skepticism that's out there so often today among folks in terms of organizations. And first, people value their time. Certainly, they value their money, because if you're a part of the organization, there is a cost to be a part of the organization, because the way that we fund what we do certainly there are grants and other monies that we go after, but also our institutions help fund this work because it has a good value for them. If you're going to be a part of something like this, then you need to know that you're going to get a good value for the dollar that you spend. And I guarantee you, okay, if you're a part of this, you're going to find out that it's some of the best money that you spend to be a part of something like this, okay? Because we're all a part of a whole lot of other things that, it's nice. You do them just because you're a part. But if you want something that's really, really effective for you, and as I said, you get a lot of bang for your buck, then Working Together Jackson and Working Together Mississippi are that institution. So be a part of it, okay? Well, listen, there's a lot that I want to talk about because so much is going on, certainly on the national scene. We've got these funerals that are now taking place in Buffalo. We've got these funerals that are taking place in Uvalde, Texas, and other places. The crazy thing is that we center on those two because they're the two big ones. But I was looking at something today. We've had well over 200 mass shootings, which means multiple people have been shot this year. We've only had 150 some days or something like that. I mean, it's crazy. The number of mass shootings that are taking place in this country, and because it's become so commonplace, a lot of times, unless it's something really, very, very hurtful and atrocious, now, unless you're at that particular locale or close by, you don't even hear of these things occurring. And so it really is a bad epidemic that is going on, and we got to get some change, okay? That's got to be some change. And so, the question of what we do is a critically important one because, you've got competing causes out there, and sometimes it looks like it's a Republican Democrat. The truth is more really to some degree, people that are if you will, Second Amendment versus those who have, that don't see Second Amendment as an overall guiding principle. The truth is we all believe that in some sense you ought to have rights to bear arms if you want to, okay? But at the level that we're having things now, many of us, and I would be one of those people who would believe that though I believe in the rights to bear arms, and if you want to have a firearm at your house to protect your property, your person, and things like that, and give you more comfort, certainly you ought to have that right to be able to do that. I don't think that's, from a preacher, that's not sinful or anything like that. You ought to have that. If you determine you don't want to have that, then, you don't have to have that. But in America, we do have rights. But now we're talking about something that goes beyond basic rights to have the kind of firepower. The question is, did the original framers really ever envision you having an automatic weapon, okay, an AK-47 or AR-15, these kind of things? Certainly would have never envisioned anything like that. Is that a right that you have? And when does there come the point where the sheer hurt and pain that this kind of weaponry inflicts upon citizens and the lives that are taken in this country becomes so overwhelming that even if you are, a gun rights person, no matter how much you think you ought to have, quote, for your sporting enthusiasm and all of this, when is enough enough? How many people have to lose their lives before, we say enough is enough? And, and then you shape that around, all of the things that are said, particularly for people who tend to be on the gun rights side of this, who say, well, it's not a gun issue, it's a mental health issue, okay? Or if you say something crazy like Senator Ted Cruz said, he says it's not a gun issue, it's a door issue, okay, referring to the fact that the door at the school was not locked. And so, I don't want to rehearse all that. You know all of the stuff that's been said about that and in terms of that. And so, what do we do? Because certainly, if you look at it just kind of on the surface, you would say that the Republicans are really holding this up. And as the basketball coach Steve Kerr says, you got 50 senators up here who've determined that right is more important than the lives of children and other lives, once again, of African American seniors and others in Buffalo. Because one common thing really is a common factor. If you look at all of the they had an AR-5 or an AK-47. Which were the weapon of choice. And so, somebody may have, I tell folks this, is that, a person may have a right to have a knife, okay? And, they may take that knife and go and decide, hey, I'm going to hurt myself, but I'm going to hurt some other folk. Well, the truth is, more than likely, that person isn't going to hurt nearly as many people, okay, as they would if they had an AR-15. And when you give an AR-15 to 18-year-olds and others who now we know, too, are out there on the web spewing, all of this venom and other things like that, we see some of that stuff, then that's a volatile mix that blows up on everybody, okay? It blows up on everybody. And we got to do something about terrorism. Now let me introduce that. We got to do something about terrorism in our communities. Okay. Now we know the guy in Buffalo who did that heinous crime. That guy was a domestic terrorist. He's a murderer. He's a mass murderer, but he's actually a domestic terrorist. The guy in Uvalde, Texas. Okay, that guy was a mass murderer and a domestic terrorist, okay? That's what they were. Call them what they are. But, the truth is we just had a 12-year-old child shot in this city, actually right down the street from the church where I pastor, okay? A kid who was on the high honor roll had come to town to get an award, okay? Mother had moved them to Hattiesburg because of threats against them. That child's life has been ended because of a domestic terrorist. Call it what it is. These folks, even in Jackson, Mississippi, who are doing these drive-by shootings and all of these things, those aren't just some petty criminal. Those folks are terrorists because they are bringing terror to this community where children can't go out in the yard and play basketball in their own driveway, okay? People can't enjoy themselves at their house without thinking about your house is going to get sprayed. Okay, and these days, if you got teenagers, particularly teenage boys, and they offend somebody, or my Lord, if they themselves are a little thuggish, then even more, it brings a sense of terror to the entire family and neighborhood. Because sometimes you have people spraying the wrong house; they're shooting at the wrong house because they thought the person lived somewhere else. And so these are the kind of things that's going on, and we got to address this terrorism. Listen, we're about to go to the break, but if you'd like to call us and have something to say, if you got an idea or something like that, love to hear it. You can give us a call here, and after the break, we'd love to get you in. Stay with us.
Socrates Garrett ENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. Socrates Garrett ENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.Dot grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. By using Socrates Garrett ENT.com's crushed concrete products, anyone from homeowners to general contractors can help reduce landfilled concrete waste, conserve natural resources, and gain significant economic savings on materials and disposal costs. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
Advertise on WeBelieve.Global, a brand new digital media platform. Share your brand with our audience on our many global live stream TV broadcasts and over the radio. For more info, visit WeBelieve.Global or call 800-492-5186, option 1.
Welcome back to Working Together, which is a program of Working Together Jackson and Working Together Mississippi. I'm Bishop Ronnie Crudup, Diocese Bishop for the Fellowship of International Churches and Senior Pastor of New Horizon Church International. And I welcome you to this program. Once again, Working Together from Working Together Jackson and Working Together Mississippi. And join us, join the organization and be a part, okay? Today, in our discussion, certainly we're talking about something that's getting a lot of coverage and everybody's talking about it. And this is one of the places you really can say everybody's talking about it. We're talking about the sad circumstance of affairs of crime and what I want to determine and classify as terrorism that is going on in our community. And before the break, I talked about the fact we know that the guy in Buffalo, we know the guy in Uvalde, Texas, were both domestic terrorists. But I want to say to you, the person that shot this 12-year-old boy down in South Jackson the other day was a domestic terrorist. And other folks who are going around spraying cars, with guns, are shooting at one another in the streets. You got that kind of thuggery that's also going on. These folks will pull upside one another and start firing at one another. Not thinking about anybody else that would be around at all. And, happened here in Jackson, Mississippi, okay? And certainly we see and hear that kind of stuff on the south side of town a whole lot more frequently than we should. These folks are domestic terrorists. And so, what's going to be done? Now, the city council has been considering something that I certainly, too, want to kind of weigh in a little bit. And so I think Councilman Banks has been the one that's kind of been the guy that's probably been pushing it more than anybody else. And that is, a law around holding these parents responsible, okay, for the actions of their children. Now, Councilman Stokes has been talking about that a long time as well. I think Councilman Banks has kind of taken this to another level, and he's been holding some hearings with the city council and getting input of others as they talk about framing, okay, a law that holds parents responsible for the actions of their children. Now, let me say this. I think anybody common sense knows that parents, particularly when you talk about a minor. So when you talk about, if you will, I'll go to 18 and less person, then the parents have some responsibility that's there because that child is going to live with you more than likely. You are the source of their livelihood, where they stay, and all of these things. And so the question becomes, what is the issue of negligence? Let me use that word, okay? What is the issue of negligence? And if a parent knows that their child is harboring weapons, let me use this word, weapons of mass destruction in their house, that stuff is being stored in their house, not only the guns, the automatic weapons, but the ammo and all of these other things like that. If that is the case, and then that child goes out and commits some heinous crime, then what is the responsibility of that parent, okay, or of those parents in that case? And that is the circumstance. Now, I understand because I've got children too, and I've got, children that are wayward and children that have done, things they shouldn't have. And by the way, when I was a child, I was in that place too. And so I understand children, and you can have the best of parents, but you can also have children, honestly, who will go and do something stupid, okay? And so what is that parent's responsibility? I think it comes down to the issue is negligence, okay? Is that parent negligent, and what does negligence look like? That's what's got got to occur. I totally agree that there has to be some kind of responsibility and some accountability of parents. It was brought to me just the other day that, one of the suggestions was that parents start at various points in times going into their children's rooms and checking the room out and see what's in there. Because if you got a child that goes out real late, is gone all times of an hour and things like this. We say this all the time. If you got children that they got money on them, they're buying all this expensive stuff, that they don't have a regular job or any of these kind of things like that, more than likely that child is also a carrier of some weapon of mass destruction. And so what's your responsibility in that? Okay? I would say this to you. I guarantee you that, and much has been said publicly, but I guarantee it's happening, that the parents of that mass murderer who lives in New York, who committed the crime in Buffalo, I guarantee you his parents are starting to pay the price. Okay? That price is going to come from neighbors. They probably don't want that family there anymore. Probably somebody has or will lose their job, okay, in terms of that, or they'll lose their business in terms of that. That's probably going to be some civil suits around this. It's going to be a whole lot of things around this. Those people become pariahs. I mean, if they're part of some social club, they invite them not to come back, okay? Same thing would be happening in Uvalde, Texas, with that young man's parent or parents in terms of this, that those folks are going to pay a price, okay, for this awful crime that that child committed, whether that punishment is enforced by society say that you are civilly or criminally accountable. The community itself is going to make you pay a price in terms of that. And remember, it's not too long ago where you remember this other young man that parents bought him these weapons, and he went to school or wherever it was, I think it was school, and he ended up shooting a couple folks, and they had bought him this stuff, knowing that he also had some problems before. And those parents end up going to jail. You don't know if they're still there now, but they end up going to jail. They end up having to move, and they will run around different places. That is the kind of cost that is going to come. And so the only question now is, what is the civil liability as well as the criminal liability that parents are going to have in this? And so there is no doubt that there should be some law. Now, I also know that the ACLU was pushing back at the city council in terms of what they wanted to do, and that's kind of what the ACLU does. I think that's got to be some kind of middle ground, okay, in the midst of this, where everybody can come to and find a place, because there's got to be some kind of responsibility, okay? Parents just can't wave their hands and say, oh, we don't have any responsibility, okay? No, we're accountable. If you've got people under your roof, certainly if you've got minors, but for that matter, if you got a person in your house and they 25 or they 30 and they become a mass murderer and they're in your house, we got to ask what's reasonable for you to know about that person that is there. And so if they're in your house, then you got to hold some kind of responsibility for that, okay? You're an accessory in some kind of way. It's kind of like we talk to our young folks all the time at the church about the fact that, listen, you got to be careful, particularly boys. You got to be careful what car you get into. You ride with a bunch of guys and they saying they're joy riding. First, you don't even know, do you know this car? You know this car is owned by this young person or the young person's parents. If not, it could be stolen, okay? And if you're caught in a stolen car, even though it's not yours, you still have some responsibility. If those folks stop and rob somebody, okay, and God forbid hurt somebody or kill somebody, even more, you are an accessory to the fact, and you're going to do some time around that, even though you're not the main perpetrator. But if you're hanging around perpetrators, as the Bible says, be not deceived, evil company corrupts good morals. And so, we have to talk to our children about that. And all of us, if you aren't talking to your children like this, then you've got to talk to your children about this, because we see this kind of stuff way too often. And now we're having to take this to say, what is the parental responsibility when that kind of stuff comes out of their house? I think that there's a responsibility, okay? That the parents or the homeowner has to take if they've got somebody in their house that is a terrorist. Because that's what it is. You got somebody who's going to bring terror to the community, then you need to know that. And you need to ask the question, what is it that would keep my child from becoming a terrorist? Or even better, does my child have terrorist tendencies? Is my child a terrorist in waiting? All they're looking for is the right circumstance, and they end up a terrorist. Well, that's what happened with the guy here in Uvalde, Texas. Is, as I understand it, he didn't have a record. He didn't have a criminal record of anything that he had been charged for, okay? But you have a guy here who doesn't have a criminal record, who goes and commits one of the most heinous crimes ever. Because when you start murdering children, and remember this, murdering children from your community, murdering children, if you will, that are of your race, who are Latin or Hispanic, of your folk in your community, that's something, that's another level of demonic. And it is demonic, okay? That goes there. And so how does a person like that, who apparently does not, I talked about this in a message I did about complaint, his complaint was not financial. He went and bought those weapons. He bought all that ammo, body armor, and all that. So his issue wasn't money, okay? It is said that he had a very expensive truck he was driving, so access to nice transportation was not his complaint. Apparently, the basic thing that he needed, his family was provided for him, and so probably he was middle class or a little higher in terms of affluence and access to money and things. So, what was his complaint that would cause him will go down historically as one of the worst mass murderers, terrorists, domestic terrorists in this country? And so, could your child, your niece, your nephew end up being that kind of person because you know the kind of things that they're espousing, the kind of things that they're saying? It ain't funny now. Somebody talking about, I blow everybody else up in here. That ain't funny no more. You say this kind of, you don't know me, I go get my stuff and I do something. And that kind of stuff ain't funny. It ain't a joke no more. And so what kind of responsibility? If you heard folks talking this way, so-and-so has been saying this kind of stuff. They say, hey, before school is over, I'm going to do something to folks. If you heard your children talk about you can't just take that as an idle threat anymore. Oh, I didn't think he was going to do anything like that. You hear that kind of stuff, you got to do something. You got to ask a question. What responsibility do all of us have when we hear that kind of stuff now? And so this law, I think that the city council needs to put in some level of law. Certainly, I think there's a whole lot more discussion that needs to come around it, but parents got to have some kind of responsibility. And so there's got to be law that pushes this forward, okay? That's got to be some kind of responsibility. Because I can see that for myself. Because once again, if I own property and I allow certain kind of things, then I'm negligent, okay? And because we all live together, and we all need to hold ourselves accountable. Well, listen, as my time is almost up today, once again, I want to invite you to be a part of Working Together Jackson and Working Together Mississippi. You can go to Facebook and you'll find us there. You can Google us there and be a part of the good work that we're doing. We're working on some really good circumstances and things right now all the time. And so I want to invite you. You've got an organization. Get your organization. Check us out. Talk to us. Come and be at some of our events. Monthly, we have a gathering. You can come and be a part of that. We want you to be involved because I know that when you come, you're going to be helped yourself. Until the next time, thanks for being here with us, working together.
Do you have something to say? Do you want your voice heard? Join the We Believe Global lineup. Be the star of your own show. For more info, call 800-492-5186, option number 1, or visit online at webelieve.global.